Hey teachers, I'm going to show you a strategy that you can use using your Google Apps in order to make a drag and drop activity. So I don't know about you, but I always liked making hands-on sorting activities for my kids in order to review content, but it took such a long time to cut everything out and put it into baggies. So I'm going to show you a way to make a sorting activity electronically. So this is an example of what you can use. This is a Federalist versus Anti-Federalist sorting chart. So what you'll see here is that I have a couple of columns. I've got text boxes on the side, and these would be the pieces that I would normally cut out and then have my kids sort onto this chart. So all I have to do if I'm a student is just click on it. Okay, wanted strong central government. Is that a Federalist or Anti-Federalist? Well, I know it's a Federalist, but then I have to look at, okay, what category does that belong in? I would put it under level of government. So it's really easy to just move these pieces around and do the sorting activity that way. So let's go through an example of how to create this. So I'm going to go to my Google Drive, and I'm going to select New. I'm going to have to go down to More and select Google Drawings. And I'm going to create and share. Now, this is very simple to use. And I'm going to make an example of a colonies map sorting activity. And it's kind of like using Google Slides if you're familiar with that. You can insert text boxes and images and so forth. So I'm going to get a map of the 13 colonies. I'm just going to copy it and paste it in. And now let's say I want to make some things for my kids to click and drag into the appropriate subregion of the 13 colonies. So I'm going to go to Insert. I want to make a text box. I'll draw that text box on the side. And let's say I want a geographical feature. I'm going to say poor, rocky soil. Okay, I can manipulate the text and all of that right here in the toolbar. Okay, now let's say I also want an image to go along with that. Especially for my ELL students, it would help to have those images. So I'm going to copy this image I Googled of poor rocky soil, and I'm going to paste it in. Okay, it made it huge, so I can always shrink that down. I can crop it and so forth. Okay, now what I can do is let's say I want the kids to be able to drag all of this stuff together. Okay, so I'm going to make this text box a little bit bigger. I can manipulate that later if I want to, but I want to make a line so that my students can see what they're supposed to drag. Okay, now maybe I also want to put a background color, fill color on there, so they can kind of see that it'll stand out. Now, when I drag this, the problem is that it doesn't all go together. So in order to solve that, I'm going to click on both my text box. I'm going to press Control on my laptop as I click on the image. All right, so they're both selected. Now I'm going to right-click and click on Group. Okay, and what that does is it allows all of those items to be dragged at the same time. So that would be my advice to you as you create your text boxes, to always group your images with your text that you want to move together. Okay, now the next step is once I have this done, I want to be able to share this with my students for them to each have their own copy. Now there's a couple ways you can do this. You can either go to your Google Classroom and assign this Google Draw to your students just like you would any other sort of Google document. Or there's a little trick you can do in this URL. Okay, so right now notice in this URL the end says edit. Okay, and that link allows whoever has this link to edit this document. You don't want your students to edit it, you want them to have their own copy. So I'm going to show you a trick. You are going to go to these last 4 letters, edit, and change the URL to copy. And I'm going to press enter. Now what this does is ask me, would you like to make a copy of Colonies map? Okay, and then I would say yes, make a copy. So what you will do is copy this URL And that's what I would share with my students. Now you can obviously shorten this URL so that your kids aren't typing all of this. You can change it into a QR code, but the point being, this is the URL you want to give to your students in order for each of them to have their own copy. So just so that you see, if I'm a student, this would be the URL I'd put in. I would click on Make a Copy. And then as a student, I would have my own copy that I can now go and edit. So remember, the URL we want to give them is the same URL as our original, but we're changing the edit to copy. So there are a couple of other examples that you can definitely use, one on political parties as well, but now you know how to create your own Google Draw activity.